All right, let's just go through some of my Twitter feed and see what's interesting to discuss. Looks like Midas Touch Super PAC has another video out. It's no longer Democrat versus Republican, it's democracy versus fascism. Yeah, so I see a lot of arguments coming out in this sort of framing because the idea of voting has been really attacked by a lot of people on the right. So that's been associated with fascism, while anybody who disagrees with that on the right, plus the Democratic Party, have kind of come together on defending democracy, essentially. So it looks like the ad goes into a few things about fascism and former fascist dictatorships, essentially, and how they get across their message to gain power. Number one of being they choose an enemy to scapegoat. All right, so right here, the inflation issue is a phony issue that could be dealt with if the US was a democracy with a state that represented workers. Capitalists are the ones raising prices. Why? Because they can. Demand price controls and price rollbacks on essential goods like food, fuel, and rents. So I've seen this argument a few times because a lot of people, when they think about the inflation happening, they assume it's only because of heavy spending. But if a small amount of companies have a monopoly on those products, or if, an average sized group of companies just decides to work together, they can all agree and just raise prices as high as they like. No inflation needed. And when people talk about inflation, they're also just, well, the companies are listening and can put prices extra high just because they can, because they want to, because that's what is at the basic idea of a company's capitalist mission is maximum prices to maximize profit. So without any regulation or anything done to counteract that natural tendency of that type of company to want to do that, well, you're just going to get higher and higher prices. So some of these trucker convoys have continued doing their protesting, and it looks like here's a video briefly about someone being arrested, but it's a counter protester. So they're not arresting the people who are disrupting the supply chain and also pushing up prices in the convoy, which is so interesting about who the authorities would choose to target. They often have a favorite group of people that they don't enforce the rules against. There's a selected class which they're allowed to do whatever they want. So somebody's saying, my dad has to have chemo every day for 9 weeks, first round, on top of getting a bill from the oncologist, imaging, and radiology, the radiologist tech that reads the reports, the lab, meds, and cancer center. The hospital is also charging $17 to $24 a day for parking. And this person says, F the system. So, I mean, healthcare costs are out of control. Absolutely. That is 1000% true. And yeah, on top of that, the hospital, see, this is tricky. The hospital's charging for parking because these systems all run at a profit. They don't run in order to save as many people as they can or help as many people. They run to make money. So that's the conflict that you're seeing here. And yeah, what I would love to fix. So concerning the Russia-Ukraine situation, Ukraine defense minister, Russia is not invading anytime soon. Ukraine president, Russia is not invading anytime soon. Russia, we have no plans to invade Ukraine. But the US, we want to be crystal clear on this point. Any American in Ukraine should leave as soon as possible, and in any event, the next 24 to 48 hours. So the idea being conveyed here is just the amount of war drums being hit by the establishment constantly in the media, just repeating the idea that we may have to intervene. I don't believe they're receiving a bunch of new evidence that shows that they have to intervene, but this is the narrative they want to push because whether or not they have to intervene, they want to intervene. And that is the pro-imperialist nature of the establishment of the US government, which plenty of people, myself included, are not a fan of. And Maria Shriver says, I, for one, am glad that the president spent a long time on the phone with Putin. Diplomacy still matters. It still works. We all should hope it does because no one wants a war. Given what we've seen in all recent wars, Afghanistan, the most recent that we pulled out of, so much wasted money and lives. And for what? Nation building is not really possible in so many instances. That money should be put to better use at home, domestically.